Hello everyone and welcome to Chess Ultra and this 1 hour chessathon. My name is Simon Williams. I'm 40 years old. I'm a Grand Master of Chess. Sounds pretty cool, bit like a Jedi Knight but of chess. I've been playing for about 35 years in competitions and in world championships and in various high online encounters. Now, Chess Ultra is a game available on Steam. You can go and get yourself a copy now, and it's a brilliant introduction to the game of chess. It will take you from beginner all the way to a good club standard player. You can play against the computer, other players. There's various levels, there's various tutorials, over 80 tutorials. And you also get to sit in a lovely room like this, as you can see here, with the nice wooden furniture. And in these COVID times, you'll be safe there. So look forward to that. It has a selection of time variants, so you can play quick speed, long speed, different types of variants like Blitz and Fischer. And like I mentioned, lots of tutorial kind of things. So it is a lovely game. Now, in the next hour, I'm going to sort of take you through it, and we're going to try out some of those elements. So I'm going to play some quick chess, going to have a look at some of the lessons, going to play a bit longer time limit. We're going to try out some of the various levels. Can I beat the computer? Oh, come on, son, let's do it. So to start with, I'm going to play a quick game of 5-minute chess. So let's go into the main menu. You can see there's loads of different options here. The tutorials are great, and it's just the look of the board. I mean, it's actually better playing on this than it is on a real board. That's what I found amazing. I'm like, whoa, check it out. And if we just go to the simplest one, single game, you can see here I've been practicing a little bit, but we can dive in. Here we go, loading up against the amateur, which is Chess Ultra. We're in a very nice little lounge here. I put on my nice little, my best blazer for the thing. Otherwise they would not let me in. Had I come in my normal hoodie, I'm sure I wouldn't have been allowed into this lovely establishment here. The weather's not so fantastic out there, but it's nice and cozy inside. And you can see there's nice little cup of coffee there. I may celebrate with a large whiskey if I manage to succeed in my endeavours here. Let's get cracking with the game. And it really is a beautiful board here. I'm going to keep the highlights on because these show you where the pieces can move. Now, of course, you can turn them off as well. And let's remember, we only have 5 minutes each, and I've already spent 12 seconds. So the first thing to do in chess is to control the centre of the board. You've got to think chess is like a battle. And remember, if I lose on time, it's going to be very embarrassing. I won't, though. And there are basically 3 rules you need to do. A lot of beginners will start playing on the sides of the board, but chess is a battle, and you need to treat it as a battle. Centre of the board, most important part of the board. The next thing to do is really bring out your knights and bishops. Again, lots of beginners bring their queen out, but imagine in a battle if you brought your most powerful troop out and it got captured early on. You would lose your most powerful asset. So this queen move here from my opponent is maybe a little mistake. Now, there are actually something like 2,000, maybe more, different ways you can start the game. And there's 3 elements to the game of chess. The start of the game is called the opening. And what I'm trying to do here is open up the position because I've got better development with 2 knights developed. They're not called horses, they're called knights. Don't call them horses if you want to be a professional. No, no, no. Now, my opponent's also played a bad move there by moving the same piece twice, wasting time. So we're controlling the centre. We got our knights out. Let's get a bishop out now. Be very careful where you move your pieces. Never move on squares and be attacked. And another rule you must do is look at your opponent's last move. This is what people don't do enough. See what it's attacking. See what the idea of your opponent is. If you can get in your opponent's head, you're halfway to winning. He wants to catch my bishop, and I'm going to move my queen here to stop that from happening. Well, it doesn't stop it, then I'd win his queen. And the last thing out of the 3 rules we want to do at the start of the game is to get castled. But again, if I castle here, he might take my knight. I'm looking at his last move. And here I've got to do something with my knight on this square here, because his knight there is attacking it. So what do I do? Well, again, I can defend it. If I capture his knight, he will capture back. It's 3 points for 3 points. So in actual fact, I'm going to move my knight to this square here, because I'm aiming to get my knight into that square, which he has allowed now. And this knight can now go into this square, and I've checked his king. Get in there, son. And I'm going to take his rook there. And the rook is worth 5 points, so I've won 5 points. I didn't realise how fast this speed was going to be. I'm already down massively on time. So the third thing to do, castle. So these are the basic rules. Control the centre, get your knights and bishops into the game. Look at your opponent's last move. I didn't want to lose my queen there. And also, just get your pieces, create threats. Okay, so he has won a pawn back now, because when I take here, he's going to take my bishop. But let's remember, this is my last piece I want to develop, my last minor piece, knight or bishop. And now I'm going to line my rooks up against his king. This rook is lining up there. And I'm now going to get my last rook on this line, because that's what we call an open file, aggressive file there. It's great to have an open file. Rooks and queens work very well on the open file. And by playing his last move, he's left this one on pre. So you've always got to look out for captures. If you're thinking about capturing on a square, count how many pieces you've got attacking that square. I've got 1, 2. My opponent's only got 1 defending it, this one here. If you've got more attacking that square than your opponent has defending, you're quite safe in capturing it. Now, am I going to lose on time? This is something I suddenly realised I've got to speak a lot quicker here, guys. Ooh, but I don't think I am. I think my attack is extremely strong here. I've got the extra rook. His king is in a lot of trouble. And now I want to think of ways I'm going to create some deadly attacking chances. Now, I want to get my rook into a check position there. But if I moved it there straight away, he'd capture it. But if I give it double power, and having double power is a very good idea, okay, they work extremely well. He can't take that one. You can see the double power in action. I think I'm going to do this with plenty of time on the clock. You know what? I can even have a little bit of my coffee there, make-believe coffee. Where is it? Where's my coffee gone? We've got a whole minute to finish it off. A whole minute. Easy, easy. Okay, now I'm going to get my last piece into the game, my queen. And now we've got triple power. My opponent defending by moving his knight out. And now I'm going to bring this knight back into the game with a check. And you can see I'm centralizing everything as much as I can. But how do I do the killer blow? Well, this knight's not doing anything. So the way I like playing chess is trying to coordinate all my pieces, get them all working in the best way as I can. That move threatens his rook. 30 seconds. God dear. 30 seconds. Have I got time? Have I got time, people? Well, they're conversing on his position. He's moving all the way back there. Let's get another piece into the attack. And I'm trying to get them all coordinating. Okay, we've got 19 seconds. I'm starting off a little bit fast with this today because, I feel like chess is all about timing. It's all about thinking of the right concepts, getting them in the right move order, making sure you keep a very close eye on your clock, and delivering checkmate with 2 seconds left. Okay, so anyway, that was just our first little introduction to this game, and that was on amateur level, and I wanted to show you it can be quite exciting when you put the timing on, and 2 seconds is a lifetime for a chess player. But I went over those kind of ideas quite quickly, and maybe too quickly to grasp them and to hold them in. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to give myself a real challenge, and we're going to play a lot of a deeper time limit. So we're going to try and really get into the ideas that can make you a better chess player. So if we now go into the game again, we'll keep the same settings, but that one was pretty quick, wasn't it? So we could say 45 minutes each, but I think what we're going to do is go for this one, which is, and we're going to go all the way up to Grandmaster, where both sides start, as you can see here, with 30 minutes, and you get 30 seconds a move. So we're going to give this little one a go, I think, or yeah, we don't want to go marathon. And we're going to play against the highest level now. So the way we're going to try to do this one, we've got the black pieces, and I want to sort of now take a bit more time. So remember the 3 things to make you a better chess player. We might not finish this game, but I want to show you the opening stages of it. Can you remember them? Number one, the center of the board is the most important part. And you want to try to get control of that with your pawns. Now, there's many different setups you can do. In this one, I'm going to move the pawn here. And the reason for this move is I can now place this one here. And we have these 3 pawns in a row. And that's like a chain. If you think of a chain of sort of a bike chain, they're all looking after each other. They all fit together. And these pawns here all fit together, guarding the center of the board. So I now have some central control. Now, we should always look at our opponent's last move. Remember, that was another idea. And you can see with the knight coming to this square, white has a little bit of pressure on this pawn here. But how many pieces does he have attacking that pawn? 1, 2. And remember, if he needs to win that pawn, he has to have more attacking than I have defending. I have 1, 2 defending that pawn. So I'm not so worried about that. But the second thing you need to start the game is to get your pieces out. And by I mean your pieces, I mean your knights and bishops. They should come out next of all. So by moving my knight to this square, I'm going to increase the pressure on his center, and I'm developing. He's also moved a piece out. And again, we've got to think what he's trying to do here. He is abiding by the rules of chess by developing and by getting his army into the battle. And that's what we call a pin. If I now move my knight here, his bishop would capture my queen. And that ain't cool. That ain't cool. So I'm going to now try to break that pin by breaking the bishop's line towards my queen. So I'm going to put the bishop in front of my king there to stop that line from happening. He's coming on to attack my knight, but now I can move my knight, which I will do, and he can't capture my queen because I have the bishop in the way. By taking my bishop, he gets 3 points, but I'm going to get 3 points back. The bishop and knights are 3 points, pawns 1 point, rooks 5 points, queen 9 points. And this is quite a good indication to sort of keep an idea on who's doing well. And you can see his center is better positioned than me. But the third thing you've got to do at the start of the game is to get your king safe. And now I am able to castle here and get my king safe. So we've basically done sort of a little bit. We've done number 1. We've got the pawn chain. We've done number 3. Got our king castled. But these guys over here are not very well developed, are they? So you should always, they say, speak to your pieces and say, hello, knight. Where do you want to go? What is your lifetime ambition? Do you want to be a doctor, a dentist, or what do you want to do? A cleaner? Whatever you want to do, you've got to maximize your potential. So be like a parent to your pieces and try to work out where you'd want to put all your pieces to try and achieve the best out of the position. Now, if you are actually in a tournament, some chess players have done this. It can be quite an odd mix, chess players. A collective mix, I think, is the polite word. Some people have actually started speaking to their pieces during a tournament, and just don't do that. You might get in trouble. Yeah, you might get in trouble. But what I want to do here, I want to move my knight out. But if I move it out there, it's not really attacking his pawns because they're very well defended, because my opponent has this more advanced center. So I now am getting into the sort of the middle part of the game, and I'm looking at his center, and I'm thinking, well, I want to kind of break that center down, and I'm going to do that now by a pawn break. Now that pawn is protected by my knight and queen. So if he takes my pawn, I take him back. And what I'm trying to do with this move is get rid of that pawn there. And if I can chip away, like a, sculpture, chipping away at my Leonardo da Vinci, or maybe it's Raphael, I can destroy his center position. And I don't want him having that grip on the center of the battlefield. If I take there straight away, his knight will come to the center, and I want to keep the tension. So what I'm actually going to do is now move my knight out, and I've moved it behind my pawn. And this is quite a clever strategy, because the pawn and knight have much more effect on the center rather than if I left that pawn back here. But my opponent has now made a very committal move. He has castled queen's side, so on the opposite side of the board to my king. And now I can look at where he's placed his king. His king can't move away from that area for the rest of the game. And I can start formulating my plan. And my plan is, what's the aim of chess? Checkmate. So I'm going to use a strategy here, a middle game strategy called a pawn storm. And when both kings are castled on opposite sides of the board, you can storm your pawns towards your opponent's king to try and get an attack. But because I've moved this pawn here, I won't take this pawn anymore because I like this pawn. Instead, I'm going to storm it like a little trooper, charge right towards my opponent's king. And I'm hoping maybe with these little troopers coming over here, like your pawns are really like your foot soldiers and you want to make them work the best you can. I'm going to get an attack going. But my opponent, being the top level computer, isn't going to sit there and let me have all the fun. He's now storming towards me. And this is where it gets really exciting. It's like hand-to-hand combat. And who's going to get there first? Now, if I move this pawn 2 squares forwards now, he might go knight takes pawn. Now, that could be okay for me because he's opening up this line here towards his king there. And I could put a rook there. And this is where you've got to try to think ahead, which takes a bit of practice. Attacking his knight. Try to follow this. And his knight then, though, might come into my position. It might come into this square here. And I don't like my opponent's knight coming in there. If I take it, his pawn takes. Pretty high-level stuff. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to slide my rook here first. And this is preparing the next pawn storm. This pawn here is going to try to roll up the board with my rook behind it. So every move I'm doing has a plan. This is what you need to do. So make sure whenever you're playing, every move you have has a plan behind it. Now my opponent, by playing this move, is aiming to stop that pawn coming up, and he wants to come into my position anyway, which is a clever idea. So he's going to get his knight into this position, but I'm going to keep my pawn storming going. This is a lovely move. It's called a kick move. If a piece comes into your half of the board, try to do a little kick move. Get out of my board. Ugh. Just give it a little nudge with one of your pawns, because now that knight has to make a decision. If it doesn't do anything, I will capture it. So he's continued coming forwards. Okay. And I'm going to now continue my pawn storm, because if you think of his king, what he really has with pawns in front of your king, I've got them these guys here. He's got them with these guys there. They're like your bodyguards. And when you've got castled, you want to keep your bodyguards close to you. You don't want to move them away too much. And what I'm trying to do now with my pawn storm is I'm trying to, at some point, break through his bodyguards, because then his king will become weaker. And the aim of the game is not to capture your opponent's king, but it's to surround it and trap it. But you need to get rid of your opponent's protection for that piece. My opponent, on the other hand, is playing very nice centralized moves. But now I've got to think, well, if I break over here immediately, I don't really have that sort of, shall we say, I don't have any of the real resources that I need, because like a battle, chess is based on a battle. The resources you want are all your troops coordinating. And look, my queen is trapped in by the knight. I want to get my queen over here. And that knight there is just really, really strong. So, what I want to try and do is somehow get rid of this knight. And the only way I can now think about doing that is try to swap it off for one of my knights. Can I do that here? Not easily. Now, another thing I could try to do, and I'm just thinking out loud here, I could go knight here, knight here. I'm just thinking if I can get rid of it, if I can ever move my pieces to exchange that guy off there. Now, another plan I'm going to try here, I'm going to try to move this knight here. I'm going to get my bishop off the first rank so that piece can play in the game. And then I want to move this knight to where my bishop is, because I figured out what my opponent's strongest piece is. It's this knight here. You've got to think about your opponent's ideas and what they're trying to do. And if I can swap that one off, then I'm doing well. But my opponent is now coming with what looks like quite a scary attack here. I am a little bit scared, I'll be honest. And now he might be trying to open up my king first. So if he plays that one, I'm going to be quite open on this file. So I'm just going to tuck my king over there. I might need to give it a better protection later on. And I'm going to try to get my 2 moves in, but will my opponent get his attack in first? Very strong computer, this one. Grandmaster versus Grandmaster, but I feel I might be in trouble here. So now with the queen there, why did he play that move? He's trying to push this pawn forwards, and that is looking scary as hell, actually. And if he pushes that pawn forwards, I wanted to take, he would capture back, and then his queen's defending his knight here. Ugh. So we're gonna now. Oh dear, I don't like the look of this. What are we gonna do? Well, I might be in trouble. He's got the better opening. This was a very clever idea, getting his knight there. I got to give the computer a little bit more respect next time. My excuses are starting to come here, and I think I have to put my pawn here before he comes forwards towards my king. But I'm opening things up with his rook lined up against my queen, and I'm not sure the opening is going to work out very well for me here. But it's the only move I can see. Okay, so he's captured here, and now I'm going to take with the rook. I can't see any other option. And I couldn't have taken the knight because his queen would have come in and captured my queen there. And I'm just trying to hold on in this position, but he's certainly made a lot more progress than me. Cool. Well, as we can see, as I'm finding out, if you're playing the computer at top level, you're certainly going to get a good game. I was supposed to be British speed chess champion. This computer's coming at me. And now, look at his knights. His knights are boogieing away in the centre of the board here. This is supposed to be a lesson, not a lesson on me getting defeated. If I now go queen takes knight, he can move this one with a check, unleashing his queen against my queen. Now, I know a lot of the things I'm saying are a little bit high level. I'm trying to keep it as simple as I can, but that would be disastrous. So the other problem is his knight is attacking my knight on this square. It's amazing how real the pieces look. So I need to do something with this knight. What do I do? Well, the only move I can think of is to capture that knight there, but I'm not sure about this one. My attack has never really materialized here. And after this move, well, he can just take me back, and my rook will then be attacked by his pawn if he uses his pawn, but he's coming in with the queen. And you've got to think now what his idea is. Well, that queen is looking at my rook there. So his idea is to move that knight, and then his queen can take my rook. So my rook is in trouble. So I'm going to move my knight here, and that does two things. It defends my rook, and it attacks his queen. So I'm not going to give up yet. We've got to keep fighting, and this seems to be my best chance. But the problem I've had here, I've never got all my troops into the game. This bishop here has been difficult. Oh, and he now comes with a nasty little tactic. And he's using the rook here, which is lined up against my queen, to create a nice idea. And the idea is, this is what we call a pin. My pawn here is pinned. I'm going to take the queen just to demonstrate the idea. And after I take this one, his rook is now going to come and capture my queen. And I'm going to actually commit suicide here because I want to show you some other things to do with chess. I just thought it might be fun to play the top level, speak about it as quickly as I can. But now after the rook comes in here, again, always make sure you look at your opponent's strongest move. And he wants to move his rook here, which in the trade we call a back spanker. Back ranker, actually, but some people call it a spanker. Don't go there. And if I was playing in a tournament here, I would see that this is a horrible move and maybe move this pawn here and give my king an escape square. But I'm going to allow the computer to get a bit of satisfaction. Can computers get satisfaction? Well, it's going to after this move. I'm going to take that knight. He now gives me the check. When your king is attacked, a check. I only have one move when you're in check. You've got to ask yourself, can you take the piece that's checking you? Can you block the check, or can you move out of the check? I can't capture that one. I can't move out. I can block, but it's only a temporary thing, and there you go. Oh dear, boom, I lost. So it is a strong computer. So that was me playing the top level, which is obviously a struggle there, and very, very tough game. So let's just see some of the other features that Chess Ultra has. And of course, the great thing about the single game is you go through the levels, so you're constantly pushing yourself, excelling yourself, and this is a great entrance game into the world of chess. You know, you can learn through the tutorials, you can do it step by step. Now, I just want to have a look at the challenges. Now, I did try one earlier, and this is another great way to get better at chess. In a moment after the challenges, I want to go for a historic game, and we're going to learn from some of the best players who have ever graced themselves in the chess world. But these ones are such a good way to improve. And mate in one, it's not the mate in the animal kingdom, it's checkmate. And what that means is, let's go through them. Let's put a mate on 2 on the board, and maybe you guys can see if you can have a go at doing it. And what that means is you've got to try to find the checkmate in 2 moves. Now, I can already see it. Obviously, playing chess all my life, you get trained in the patterns and they start to sort of formulate together. And this, I think, is one of the coolest ways to train in the game. There's a bit of Dracula there. It is Halloween, so very appropriate. And what you've got to try to do in chess is to work out what are your strengths and your opponent's weaknesses. I always say the pawn structure is like your skeleton and the pieces are like your organs, which makes the kind of pawn structure move. And you've got to try to work out what's good and what's bad. So if we look at our position here, you might see we have these 2 rooks on an open line. Now, I call that an open line because there's nothing obstructing it. So that's a real strength in our position. Now, we also have quite an active queen and a good knight, but we must look at our opponent's position to work out what's wrong with our opponent's position. Well, his king has not managed the castle, and the king there is blocking the rook in. And also, the bishop and rook are not developed, so he's got very bad development. His queen is a little bit offside, and I can sort of see here that if I can get something attacking that king on the back rank, I'd be laughing. But if I move my rook into this square here, his knight would capture my rook. Can you see that one? The knight moves like an L shape. So as soon as you kind of work through the essence of the position, you'll work out your strategy. His knight in this position is the key defensive piece. And by moving that knight off the board, I'm going to be able to, whatever he played, it doesn't matter if he'd have gone queen takes queen there, because my next move would be the same, and that is rook to there, checkmate. So these are the kind of strategies that you can sort of go through. So now we're going to just have a little look, and we're going to build up, and we're going to try another sort of one. And let's make it a little bit difficult. So that was mate in 2. Now, after my embarrassing loss to the computer, I want to try have a little go, see if we can move up to mate in 5. So this is checkmate in 5 moves. And again, you can move through all these puzzles. There's lots of them. Let's pick a random one. And let's talk about the process that we can try to do and how we evaluate the position, what we should be thinking before we play any moves. This is very important because if you dive into playing the wrong move, you're in trouble. Now, the first thing, it's a lovely board, isn't it? I mean, another feature you can do if you don't like it, you can have a look, different angles. But if you do this a little bit too much, and imagine you did this in a game and you're walking around the board, you look really weird in a tournament. You know, you get a bit of vertigo, but it's really nice because you can find the view that suits you. I quite like sort of a view where I have to say I'm kind of sitting there from over like I would in a tournament. So I'm imagining in a tournament I'm sitting like this and I've got the perfect view of this lovely wooden board here. We'll go wooden board in this one. And let's just have a think about the position. So first of all, we've got to evaluate the position and try to work out what's good and bad about the position. Well, first of all, actually black has more points than us if you just count the points. We have the queen and the knight. Let's just check that. That's 12 points. Queen 9, knight 3. But black has a rook 5 plus 3. So 8 plus 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. But you can see that black's pieces are all kind of blocking each other up. And that's something we will see helps us greatly later on. Another thing is the queen and knight coordinate very, very well together. Our king is not going to help out in this because it's too far away from the action. Now, when you're trying to look at these 4 sequences, the thing to do if you want to improve your puzzles and your foresight, this ability to see into the future in chess and this planning thing, it's like life. If you can plan ahead, which chess will teach you to do, you gain a very cool life skill. You can work out what you're going to be doing. You can really plan eventualities, and you have to do the same in chess. Now here, checks, you should be looking for checks because they're the most forcing moves. But if we try to just keep checking randomly here, the black king is going to head this way. and you can see the area over the board here is all empty. And when the black king gets over here, it's just going to keep running around. And if we just keep checking it with our queen, it's going to move. And we're going to get in a situation where it's check, move, check, move, check, move, check, move. And I've seen this happen with juniors. People are starting out in chess. They love it, the kids. They're like, check, 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 check. And their opponent's just moving up and down with their king. And they're going, check, check me out, check, check, yeah, I'm cool. Check, yeah, baby. Check, 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 check. But they're chess players, not rappers. It doesn't work. So what you got to do, checks are okay, but only if they achieve something. And the thing here that's key to the position is that black, if he gets to this square, the king is doing a runner. It's running for the hills like an escaped convict. We do not want to allow that king to run to the hills, over the hills, around the back of the hills. Don't let him escape. So let's just think. I mean, does the check first? So if we go check, king here. If we go check, the king's coming here. That doesn't help. A better move would be to check on this square, because then we kind of get a force field across here. And he has to go to the back rank. But we have to use our knight at some point in this. We can't just do it with our queen, not at this stage. So we'd have to go check king here and try to bring our knight in. But then if the king moves this way, he's got all this area over here, and it's going to take us too many moves to checkmate. So actually the key thing, let's see if you can find a move to think of here, is to try to get our knight in the game, a bit nearer to the king, but also to stop that king coming to this square. Now there's two ways you can do that with your knight. One way keeps the queen open, but it looks a bit crazy, and the other way keeps the queen not open, the king can start running again. Which one do you do? Have a little think about it. It's a very hard puzzle. I don't expect you to get it right, but it kind of shows what the thinking process should be. Well, the correct move here, we've got to stop the king coming there. So it's, again, creating mini force fields. When you're trying to checkmate, create these little force fields. Use the force, Luke. That your opponent's king can't run around to. So by playing the knight to this square, which looks crazy, we create a force field, because that king couldn't move to any of these three squares because it'd be moving into check. It looks crazy because now the black king's taken here, but we're going to use our opponent's pawns to checkmate now. And there's an amazing sequence of checks here. This is a bit like snakes and ladders, where you can check the king every move, eventually putting into checkmate. I'll give you a clue. The black king is going to end up here and the white queen on this square, giving checkmate. It looks crazy, right? But if you can calculate, and the more you play, the more you'll learn these skills, the more you practice, the more you'll work it out. You should use what's called the process of elimination. And what I mean by that is, if we have a look at maybe a check here on the diagonal, well, what if the black king goes back here again? I can already eliminate that, because at the moment our only hope is to trap it with its own pawns here. I don't want it escaping back this way. So I'm eliminating that move from my forts, and I'm moving on to another move. And the move I can see where it only gives my opponent one square is queen here. He's only got this square here in the middle of the board. No other squares were possible. And all I'm trying to do is give my opponent the least amount of options that I can. And now the only way I can do that but keep my queen quite flexible is going over to this square, giving it a check. Remember, when you're in check, you have to see, can your opponent capture your piece that's checking it? Can he block the check, or can he move out of it? Well, after this check here, he can't block, he can't capture, he has to move here. And now there's only one check on the board. Can anyone see the mate yet? Where is the only check you have? Luckily, it's a good check. That's why we've kept our queen on what we call in the chess term the A file. The A file. And the only check is to come down here. And again, let's do that. We'll have a little look. The king is getting a little bit more trapped. Yeah, you're not going far, son. You're not going far. You're not going far. Okay, yeah, you're trapped there. So let's go back, and we're going to put the queen now down into this position. The king only has one square, and now you can see the final kill. And this is the position we saw at the start, and this is where you can see ahead. you can foresee the future. We did manage to checkmate in 5 moves there. We're going to go back now and show you how chess can be a beautiful game. And by that, I'm going to go into challenges, and we're going to have a look at the library of games. This is another cool feature that Chess Ultra has. So you've got games you can play. You can play against other players online. You can play against a computer. You've got the puzzles. You've got many things that can help you excel as a chess player. And now you've got these historic challenges where you can, and let's start with this game. This is a very famous one. It gives you a little bit of history. This was played in 1958 in an opera house in Paris between American chess master Paul Morphy, and 2 strong amateurs, 2-on-1. You'd have thought it wouldn't be easy. So you can have a little look at the history of chess, and we're going to dive into this now. And you can learn from these positions the best ideas. What can you learn? Well, you get thrown into the critical moments, and as you can see, you're playing here as Morphy, and now you've got to try to find his moves, which I really like. So we're picking up in these games, and if you don't play the right moves, well, you're not playing as Morphy. So let's have a think about this position. Now, again, how do we assess a chess position? Well, we assess the position by the pawn structure. And if we look at the pawns, they're all pretty even. The pawns are not that important. So then we've got to go for the organs, the pieces. And you can see that white has 1 bishop, 2 bishop, knight and queen developed. Now, in this position, the queen could be good because it has a little bit of pressure here, and it looks quite safe there. Black's only got 1 knight and 1 queen developed. So whoever's got the best development with their pieces, as long as their pieces are safe, generally has the better game. So I like our position here. Let's have a look at a bit more in detail now. Now, I can castle either way here, which means my king is quite safe and quite quick to get to safety. My opponent's king is not as easy. It's not as easy to get that king safe because the bishop there is in the way. You can't castle through a piece. The queen there is blocking the bishop, and his knight over there is getting in the way. So my opponent's king takes a lot longer to get to safety. But what about any threats in the position? Can you see any threats? Well, the pawn here is attacking our bishop. Now, if you were more of a defensive player, you might think about retreating this bishop. I don't want to do that because my opponent's king is weak. I want to try to attack and open up the structure. And my first thought here is to go knight takes pawn, try to get rid of these 2 pawns and get my bishop into that position, which is check. Now, myself, I know the answer to this, but I would also try to look as far as I can. And if you can follow this, I'd be looking at knight takes pawn, pawn takes, bishop takes check. And if black then blocks with a knight, I can then castle queenside, and I get this rook on open line, increasing the pressure. Well, let's try it, because I don't want to retreat. I'm going to do what we call a sacrifice, because I'm getting 2 pawns, only 2 points. I'm getting that for the bishop. So we can do this mini sacrifice. So I think this must be right. Let's try it. And now, after this little exchange here, the bishop has got my opponent in check here. And what have I gained from that? Well, I've kept up the pressure against my opponent, because now my opponent's king, it might look well defended, but it's actually now in a worse position. Why is that? Because we've got this strategy here, which is multiple pins. And a pin is basically why you're like tying a piece down, and that piece can't move because you'd capture a more powerful piece. So, for example, this knight here is in a pin. It's pinned down. If that knight there moved, my bishop here could capture the queen. So he can't move that piece. And as you get better at chess, one of the biggest skills you can learn is getting into your opponent's mind and figuring out what they can and can't do. If you're suffocating them, it's really a rather sadistic way of doing things, but you're stopping them from doing what they want to do. And that's another great strategy on your way to winning. Now, the other knight here can't move. Can you see why? Well, it's actually also in a pin from that bishop. So That can't move because you can't move into check. And if that knight moved, you'll be placing your own king, imagining if you're black, into check. So neither of these knights can move, which is great. Now the queen is the only sort of piece that can move, really, isn't it? I mean, only one that has a role. And if it was black's move, I think the queen would shoot over to this square, giving us check. Now you might think, oh, I can take that queen. Well, if you go queen takes queen, then the bishop here, it's got double power there, could shoot over and take our queen. It'd be 9 points and 9 points. But when we're trying to attack in a game of chess, we don't really want to swap queens because the queen is our major assassin. It's our biggest assassin. If we lose our biggest assassin, we're in trouble. So do we have anything forcing here? Well, if we took either of the knights, we lose our pressure. You might think, oh, brilliant, I can take a knight, but only if it achieves something like a material gain or an attack. And if you played like bishop takes knight here or here, then I think black would just go queen takes bishop. It hasn't really helped you. You've lost your pin. If this bishop took that knight, yes, it's check, but again, the queen would just take the bishop and you've lost that pin. So in this position, it goes to a very famous statement, which is, the threat is stronger than the execution. That's quite a nice one, isn't it? It's like, well, if you're threatening to shoot your opponent, it's probably scarier than actually being shot. Because if you're shot, you don't really know about it, do you? You're like, don't shoot. It's kind of what you're doing here. It's a cruel game sometimes, chess. They pretend it's a gentleman's game, but actually it's just savage. So what I'd be thinking here is, I can't do anything with my three active pieces, my two bishops or my queen. So I want to try and bring in more firepower. It's like in the middle of a battle, my troops out there in the battlefield are doing a great job, but they need their mates to come in and help them out. So how can I increase the pressure? Well, I can do this move. I can castle queenside. And another reason I'm doing this, I get my king safe. And my rook now increases the pressure on that knight. Look at that knight. Oh yeah. Yeah, baby. You can see that. And oh yeah, okay. Can we get the ball back now, please? No. Move the knight properly, Simon. And then we're going to go like that. We've had our overview. Yes, we can see it's going well. So now we moved the rook here. Now our opponent has moved his rook to this square, trying to over defend that one, but now he's really in a box. So we should be looking at ways that we can try to do something incredibly nasty here. So what can we do? Well, if we go rook takes knight here, does that work? Well, then he might go rook takes rook, but he's still in this pin. And I think actually our rook is 5 points, the knight is 3. So that doesn't make sense from a materialistically point of view. But when you're attacking, points don't matter so much. You want to keep the pressure on your opponent's king. And here, the only piece I've got which is not doing anything is the rook here. So actually, let's just have a look at what I'm going to do. I'm going to go here. And he couldn't really take with his knight because I'd have won his queen. So he's got to go here. And by not using my bishop, I keep him pinned down. Look at that. His rook there can't move because it's in a pin. And my idea of this is now to use my last piece and swing this little guy over there. Say hello to my little friend. And now my opponent couldn't have taken my rook because it's in a pin. What he is trying to do in this position, he's trying to move his queen because now his queen has got out of my other bishop's diagonal. And he can move his knight now, this guy, without that bishop taking his queen. He would also love to exchange queens, because remember, the queen is our major assassin. He'd love to get rid of them. But now we have the killer finale, the final. And this is this is what we call the opera checkmate from this game played all those years ago. And the reason it now works is because we have every piece doing their maximum activity. The rook there, attacking. The bishop there, attacking. This bishop there, attacking. This queen here is good. But another technique I'd say you could use is look at your good pieces. So, for example, the queen. And think, well, where would be the best square I could put that to get my opponent in check? If I take my opponent's queen, his pawn would just take back. It's 9 points and 9 points. That doesn't really help. I want to get my queen on the back rank for the back spank. That's where I want to get him. So I need to get this bishop out the way now. And now it is time to go bishop takes rook. If his queen captures, I will win his queen with my rook. So he's got to take with his knight. And now this bishop is cutting across his king. So his king has no escape squares. But what can we do next? Well, we are points down here, aren't we? Because we did that initial sacrifice. But because we've got so many attacking forces around his position, we should be looking at ways to increase that pressure. And I still going to look at queen here. Now, let's give you a little question. If the queen comes down here, check, what is his only move? And remember, when you're in check, you've got to ask yourself, can I take the piece that's checking me? Can I block the check? Or can I move out of the check? Well, if we move the queen down here, you can't block the check. There's no pieces to go there. Check is where you attack your opponent's king. You can't move the king because if you move there, you'll be moving into check from the bishop. But you can go knight takes queen, which looks like a great move for black. I've won my opponent's queen. Yeah, what are you going to do now, big boy? But the problem is, by moving this knight, black unleashes our rook here. And this is what we call a queen sacrifice, a beautiful queen sacrifice to deliver checkmate. And it's picturing how our pieces coordinate with each other. And the key square is this one here. Our rook, if that knight wasn't there, imagine that knight's not there, the rook could come swinging into that square, delivering checkmate. And by sacrificing our queen, let's do it. Whoosh, we now unleash the rook and we only need 2 more pieces and our rook can now come here checkmate. The king cannot take the rook there. It was defended by the bishop. A nice little finish to the game. So again, all these features that Chess Ultra has for this really amazing price at the moment, and you know, go and check it out yourselves. It's a great way to get introduced to chess, which is going to help you become basically a more patient person. It's helped me massively in my life. It's a great hobby to have, and it's quite a social thing. I mean, chess people are supposed to be rather nerdy. It's not true, but nerd is cool anyway. So it might. Well, I'm just a nerd, but I'm happy to be a nerd. But anyway, I mean, I've got to now, just to finish off this 1 hour, try to get my revenge against the computer at top level. So hopefully some of the things that you've picked up on the way there, you can see in action here. And I am going to try to talk about my ideas again. We're going to go for a 5-minute game. So it's quick and fast. And we're going to go against the Grandmaster level. Now, I'm going to pick the white pieces this time because I had black last time. These are all the little things that you can do with the game. You can pick your colour. You can pick the time limit. You can pick the levels. And of course, the idea is you start at the bottom. If you're new to chess, you go through it. You do the lessons available. You have a look at the challenges. And you become a better chess player. And it's a great way to introduce yourself into this. Well, I certainly love the game of chess, as you may have gathered already. And let's have a little go. Can we do it? Place your bets now. I don't know if I'm going to do it. Come on, guys. Can you do it? Play along with me. Can we beat the computer at this level with the white pieces? I'm going to take my seat now. Let's do the Bruce Lee net messages. Ready? Oh, they didn't click. Oh, they're old hands, these. All those moving the pieces. It's worn out my fingers. Okay, so now I'm just going to be quite quick here because of the time limit. Pawn into the centre of the board, controlling the centre. And here I get a chance to put another pawn in the centre. So I'm going to put 2 pawns into as central position as I can. I've got to develop my minor pieces. Stage 2, get your knights and bishops into the game. My knight comes in. And in this position, well, there's a couple of moves to play. What am I going to do with this bishop? I'm going to do a little strategy called fianchettoing. The bishop comes here. And this strategy where you put the pawn in front of the bishop is called a fianchetto position. I can now, because I've moved the bishop, do stage 3, get my king safe behind the pawns. My opponent's doing the same thing. Continue developing. The knight is going to come out, get that knight in the centre of the board. My opponent has moved in with his knight. He knows his openings. Okay, well, let's have a look here. Yes, okay, yes. The clock is ticking, Simon. Okay, so what are we going to do with this guy here? Well, I have two options. I can take it or I can move. I'm going to simply capture that knight. And remember, I am playing the Grandmaster level here. Yep, okay, I can see what you're doing there. I can see what you're doing. I can see what you're doing. You've got all these different views you can play. You can, okay, so back here again. Now, I'm going to keep it simple. And I'm going to move my knight with a simple idea of exchanging off bishops. So I'm going for a more simple position of play. I'm exchanging off pieces, trying to keep it simple because the computer is a very good calculator. Now he's offering an exchange of pawns. I'm going to accept that exchange. We've both got a pawn in the center of the board. Now his queen has come out to try and attack that pawn. My knight's not doing much. I'm going to move my knight here because it creates a threat to take his queen. Cool, he's a minute up on the clock. He's pretty damn quick, this computer, isn't he? So he's got to do something with his queen now, otherwise I will take it. I've got to develop my bishop. He's got to develop his knight. I've got one more pawn in the centre. I'm reasonably happy the way this is going. Now, I'm going to move my queen here. The reason for this move is you want to connect your rooks later on. And by doing this move, I can see he's going to put a rook on that square. And I don't want his rook lined up against my queen. I want to sort of get it. I kind of know what he's going to do. I'm kind of stepping out the way. I may also have ideas of moving this pawn here later on. But he's now trying to fight for the centre. So how am I going to meet this one? Well, I'm going to simply capture that one. Get rid of the central position. It looks fairly even at the moment. Can I hold my nerve? I expect he will take with the bishop. Because if he takes to the pawn, that pawn becomes a little bit weak. If he takes to the bishop, I cannot take his bishop because I lose my queen. Ah, my words. I know this guy. I know what he's on. And now I need to get my last piece into the game. But do I first move my knight yet again to maybe try and take that bishop? That quite a tempting move. Are we going to go for that? Or do I just... Okay, I'm just going to move my bishop. I'm moving it here because I want to get the bishop there where it's going to point towards his king. I've now connected my rooks. We've both got equal material. And my knight looks okay. He's probably, if he's a good player, yes he is, he's going to get his last minor piece out. Oh, there, he's playing good moves. He moves his knight. His knight might want to jump in, but my bishop is going to come here. Remember the time. I'm going to try to stop that knight coming in, causing me sin. In like Errol Flynn. This is what all the chess players say in their minds when they're playing. If you ever thought chess was a slow game, you play this game. It's not. It's pressurized. It is quick. Okay, so he's now trying to exchange bishops. Well, he can do that. I'm going to get my rook on an open file. Remember what we said earlier. Rooks on the open file, okay. He might exchange my bishop, but it's 3 points for 3 points. So I'm not losing any material there, so it's okay. And I still think this is quite an equal position. He's moving his rook in. Whoa, tactics. And now I'm going to very quickly move my rook here as well, get my last piece into the game. Now, I'm not sure if that's the right way to play, but I want to get all my pieces working. I'm still holding my own here. And remember, computers nowadays, they're so strong. It was very interesting that this debate with computers and humans, and at some point in time, computers became stronger than humans, proving that the Terminator is real. And I'm basically getting that shown to me now. Okay, he's attacking my knight. Now, where do I want to move my knight? Knights on the rim are dim. They're not as good as moving them in the centre. So can I move it in the centre? It looks risky, but I'm a man who likes a risk or two. Hence why I'm a chess player. Okay, in we go. The knight comes into the centre of the board. The knight is better in the centre because you have more options. The centre of the board is most important. It's like a battlefield. You can flank, but moving to the centre is better. My opponent here is now trying to get rid of my knight. I feel he might be a little bit scared here. So we're going to whip that knight off, give him a check. He's got to recapture with his queen. 3 points of 3 points. He's now got my bishop in a pin. You can see his rook there lining up against my queen. So if I move my bishop, he takes my queen. No. So I'm going to move my queen quickly out. Pin. I've got 2 minutes left. Okay, come on. I'm kind of. It looks even to me. If I hold a draw against the Terminator, I am okay. Okay, so he's now exchanging 3 for 3. we're going to do that one. And this is one part so far, this whole hour, where you can see us getting into the end part of the game. What is that? The end game. Opening, middle game, ending. And, okay, my opponent trying to keep pieces on the board here, but I'm going to now try and offer the exchange again. And I'm quite happy to exchange off. I like endings. I'm a bit of an old man. I prefer to have my little pipe now. You know, put it in my pipe and smoke it. Nice and relaxing. And have a little nice game chess. Okay, well, I feel now that I've got this open line here, and I've got my queen and rook on the open line. It's very equal, but I like my position better than my opponent's. Because of the control of the open line, my piece is a little bit better. The skeleton of the position, the pawn structure, is fairly even. And now I'm going to try to exchange queens off. If he takes my queen, my rook will take his queen. I'm not worried about that, because computers are very tactical. I'm also playing against my opponent, and I'm happy to try and get rid of some tactics to keep it a little bit safer, because let's be frank, he scares me, and he wants to keep the queens on the board. No wonder there. But I'm going to try to insist on them coming. Shall I go there? He's a little bit tied up now, though, isn't he? Does that queen want to come out somewhere and attack me? Maybe over here. Okay, I've only got 1 minute 30 left. I'm going to play there quickly. I'm still trying to get the queens off. If he takes my queen, my rook comes in. Then you've got to think whose pieces are better. My rook will be better. Can we do this? Can we flag him? Flag is a chess terminology where your opponent loses on time. Okay, well, I'm going to get the queens off. Oh, yeah, baby. Take that. He moves there, giving me a check. My king comes out. Now, in the ending, it's the only part of the game where you really want to use your king. Your king is like this old, fat King Henry VIII kind of figure. He's had lots of food. He's a little bit, you know, and for most of the game, he's like, leave me alone. I'm going to finish my meal. I'm going to finish my dinner. It's only later on in the game where the king's like, okay, I've done my digestion. Out I come. What's going on, boys? And he plods around one square at a time. He's really a bit of a fatty. And he comes into the game. Now, I am better here. Why? Because we only have one piece left each. And my rook, you can see there, is much more active than his rook. Because if he ever moves his rook, my rook will take that pawn. So his rook is tied down to the defense. My rook is cutting across this rank, so his king can't come out. He's trying to get out maybe this way. I'm going to use my pawn to come there, and he's got 8 seconds left. I'm going to flag him. I can feel it. I'm getting excited. We're going to take him down. You're out, boy. You're out. Oh, he's lost on time, but he's cheating. I've beaten him on time. Surely that's a win. Okay, well, he's out of time, but the game goes on. So I'm claiming a win here, people. Blooming cheating computer. But let's see if I can beat him anyway with pure chess skills. Well, I'm now going to move my king because I feel my king is a good piece. I'm going to take this pawn, so I'm going to pawn up. I'm going to see if I can do it with not much time on the clock. I'm grabbing here, and what's he doing now? He's coming down here. I feel like I got this. I'm winning all his pawns. They don't call me a grandmaster for nothing. And now the king is a very good piece in the ending. And I'm going to use this pawn. My rook stops his king coming forwards. It's like a force field. So the way I'm trying to win this one, I'm trying to use my pawns and my king to create this nasty net around him. Oh, yes, I'll have that one. I thought you were a grandmaster. I'm now thinking otherwise. Because his clock is down, he's moving automatically. But this one is checkmate. Yeah. Whoa, yeah, baby. Okay, well, there you go. So, a lot of techniques in action there. Not like I'm happy or impressed with my own play there. But it was a load of fun. A load of fun. I hope you enjoyed this little adventure and this little overview of the great game, which is Chess Ultra.